Hey everybody, this is Valencia and welcome to my channel, Balloons and Business, where I show you the business of balloon and event decor. So today I'm going to show you how I made this mosaic balloon letter T, and I'm going to show you from the beginning to the end. So if you want to see how I made this, just stay tuned. So I'm going to start off with this 20-inch wide by 30-inch long styrofoam board, and I got this from Hobby Lobby. I purchased 6 of these boards to make my letter T, and my letter T, by the way, was about 5 feet tall by almost 3 feet wide. The top part of the T was about 30 inches. Now, Hobby Lobby as well as other retailers do sell larger boards of styrofoam. So if you didn't want to do as much gluing and taping and cutting as I'm about to do, then you can get larger styrofoam boards. But I decided to get 6 of the smaller boards because it was more cost effective for me. So now I'm going to make the backing for my letter T. So I'm going to take one of the boards and I'm going to measure out the halfway point on the board widthwise. So the strips are going to be 10 inches each. And then I'm just going to cut the board in half lengthwise. So now my strips are 10 inches by 30 inches. And this is going to be my backing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a hot glue gun and I'm going to glue the edges of these 2 boards together. And you want to make sure you have something underneath the board so you don't get your carpet or your floor, messed up with the glue gun. And then I'm going to use some duct tape and then I'm going to tape the back of the board for extra security. Now notice after I taped the board, it was still a little flimsy. So I decided to cut a strip. I cut a 5-inch wide strip. So that strip is 5 inches wide by 30 inches long. And then I'm going to use that strip in the back of the board to create extra security so that the 2 pieces are not bending. I want to make sure they're nice and straight. So I hot glued it and I put some tape on there. So now it's straight. So now it's time to cut the strips for the border of the T. And I'm making the strips 5 inches wide by 30 inches long, just like I did for the strip that I used to secure the back of the T. So when cutting your strips with the X-Acto knife, you want to go into one long continuous stroke. You want your cuts to be as clean as possible because that is the best look for the mosaic number. So I'm using my hot glue gun to pre-glue the edge of the backing, and then I'm going to put my strip on top, making sure that it's in alignment with the backing. And then I'm going to cut out another 5 by 30 inch strip. And as you can see, I am outlining that on the edges of the board. And I'm doing that because the edges of the board are already straight. So I can ensure that I'm going to get a straight line if I cut my strips from the edges of the board as opposed to the center of the board. So when adding your strips, you want to make sure that they are in alignment with each other. You don't want one of the strips sticking out a little bit more than the other one. So just take your time. Well, not too much time because the hot glue will dry up. But you want to make sure that your strips are in alignment with each other as well as the backing of the T so you can get a nice clean look for your outline. So for the top part of the T, I'm using one of the middle strips from the styrofoam board. Remember when I cut the border strips out on each side? Well, I'm using that middle strip that was left for the top part. And that's 10 inches long by 30 inches wide. And as you can see, I glued it onto the backing of the T. And then I'm going to use some duct tape and duct tape it on. And then I'm going to get a strip just like I did with the base of the T. Hot glue that on and then duct tape that on for extra security. And make sure that the top part of your T is even on both sides. You don't want your T to look lopsided at the top. So now I'm going to be using some more 5" by 30" strips for that top part of the T. And I'm going to do the same thing, hot glue it on. And then for extra security, I decided to use some duct tape right there at the edge. You don't want to put it over the edge because you don't want to see the tape at the top. So just at the edge of the back to make sure that that top part is nice and secure. And so since the sides of that top part of the T is shorter than the strip, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to make a couple of deep cuts into the strip. I'm not going to cut the strip off, but I'm just making deep enough cuts where I can bend the strip. Then I'm going to cut there right at that corner where the top part meets the base. And then I'm going to hot glue that bent part onto the top part of the T. I'm going to do the same thing, just a couple of deep cuts, not too deep where it actually cuts the strip off. And then I'll cut the strip off right there where it meets the corner of the top and the base, and then hot glue it to the backing. And then of course, I'm going to use some duct tape to make sure that's secure. So this is what the outline of the T looks like. Now I wanted this T to be 5 feet tall, okay? I'm 5'8" and this thing is taller than me. So it's taller than 5 feet, of course. So I want this to be down to here. And then I'll know that this is 5 feet. So I'm going to take an extra 10 inches off of this right here. So as you can see, I cut that 10 inches at the base of the T using an X-Acto knife. And now I'm going to add a backing to this T so that I can add weight. So this T can stand on its own with no problems. So I cut a couple of 90-degree triangles out of some styrofoam. I glued the straight part to the back of the T. I got a small square right there, and I'm going to glue that to connect the two triangles together. And this is my backing for the T. And you can put some weight right there to keep it nice and sturdy. So this is what the T looks like cut down to 5 feet. So instead of using hot glue, which can get really messy, I decided to use my U-glue dashes to attach my balloons to my Mosaic T. And note that U-glue dashes are much stronger than your typical glue dots. So I started off with my larger balloons. I have an 11" fashion blue balloon from Sempertex brand. And I underinflated it to 9 inches by pressing my hand on the top and releasing air from the bottom, making sure that the balloon is nice and round. Then I tied the neck of the balloon, and using some scissors, I cut the excess of the neck to make sure that the balloon was as flat as possible. Then I used 2 glue dashes on the same side of the balloon right there where the neck of the balloon was. And now I'm going to press that balloon firmly against the backing of the T, making sure it's on there nice and secure. So I'm going to be doing an ombre blue design. So the 3 colors I'm going to be using is Fashion Blue, Sempertex 11", Chrome Blue, Sempertex 11", and Pastel Matte Light Blue, Sempertex 11". And I'm going to be attaching these to the backdrop in a zigzag shape. And I will be using 3 11" balloons for each color. And again, I underinflated these balloons to about 9 inches. And I'm using extra glue dashes to make sure that the balloons are on the letter nice and secure. So now I'm adding the 5" decorators. Now I already added the 5" decorators for the Fashion Blue portion. I went in and just worked my way up in kind of like an S shape. Actually, you can see it, an S. And so the goal with the 5" decorators, at least for me, is to make sure that I fill in the white backing to where you can't see the white backing here. But I want to make sure I'm within the border here because you want to get a clear view of whatever shape or number it is. And if these balloons are covering up the border, it starts to look really messy. Now you're going to be using a lot of 5" decorators. I use about 19 5" decorators just for this section. You probably need about 60 5" balloons just to fill this whole thing out. And actually, I'm probably going to need more than that because at the very top, there's a lot of space at the light blue section, okay? So I'm just showing you the pattern that I chose to do. And I'm going to go ahead on and show you how I did this with the chrome balloons, okay? So using a hand pump, I pumped 2 times, then I rounded the balloon out, then I sized the balloon to make sure it could fit in between the larger balloons and the border of the letter, and then I cut off the neck and put one glue dash on, and then I stuck that decorator onto one of the larger balloons. Then I repeated the process. Some of these balloons will require more than one glue dash to make sure it's nice and secure, so do not spare on those glue dashes. And notice how I continued the S-shaped pattern just like I did with the fashion blue balloons. Now when making your own mosaic letter or number, you can be as creative as you want to. You can use whatever pattern or design. You can inflate or underinflate your balloons to whatever size you want to. I just wanted to show you how I did my design. So here's the finished product to my mosaic letter T. Just so you know, I did use some balloon shine to restore the shininess to the balloons because they turned matte as I was transporting them. Also, you want to make sure that you budget about 2 to 3 hours, especially if you're doing this for the first time. This can be a very time-consuming project. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, go ahead on and like it, and please subscribe, and you'll get notifications on future videos on balloon and event decor. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.